Today, I want to take to task materialists. What is a materialist? Anyone care to define what a materialist is? A materialist is anyone who believes that all there is matter and chemical reactions. That there is no material, there is no existence apart from materialism. But in that very argument, there are certain problems for the materialists. For one thing, thought is not a material entity. It is not quantized, it is not measurable. Therefore, materialism would reject the existence of thought. And if thought is rejected, then the concept of materialism must also be rejected. So materialism in and of itself is an inconsistent philosophy. When you think about it, thought, not being material, can only exist in the presence of mind. Without the existence of the mind, thought cannot exist. But the mind is immaterial also. There is nothing concerning the nature of brain matter that we can chemically extract from brain matter that is thought or memory. The very concepts upon which materialism is based are faulty. For example, there is no existence, no material existence for the rules of logic. The rules of logic are not determined by some chemical reaction nor by matter itself. So therefore, the very rules of logic which a materialist tries to appeal to concerning his perspective of the world is untenable. Unless a materialist can explain the immaterial things by some property of matter, he is essentially resorting to a prima facie proof of the existence of God to try and prove the materialist perspective. You cannot have the existence in materialism of the mind, or memory, or thought, or logic, or consciousness, or love. Show me the property of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen that interact to produce love, or hatred, or jealousy, or rage, or anger, or kindness, or goodness, or tenderness, or self-control. Where in the elements, where in the periodic table do we find love, joy, and peace, and patience, kindness, goodness, tenderness, self-control? Those values are not part of matter. Therefore, they must be a part of something else. And so you have the very nature of materialism, in order to even exist, has to depend upon the supernatural, the immaterial, to even begin to argue their case. This ought not to be. If materialism is all that there is, then everything must be explained by the properties of matter, and it's not.
One thing I have no idea if that was
any thinking individual ought to be able to deduce the existence of God on the basis of the fact that there is nothing in the material world that can explain the material world as we now see it. And we do see it. By the way, what property of proteins accounts for the ability to recognize through sight patterns? Patterns. There is nothing. There's nothing in materialism that is able to account for the aspects of life on this earth. Furthermore, the materialist, and this is the part that I like the best, the materialist ultimately resort to appealing to immaterial things in order to prove that immaterial things cannot possibly exist. The soul, they say, does not exist. However, in order to prove the non-existence of the soul, the materialist will appeal to logic. But logic itself suffers from the same frailty as the soul. It is immaterial. You can't use it to argue that the soul, being immaterial, does not exist. Logic itself does not exist apart from the mind. And therefore, if the mind is made up of the immaterial characteristics which I've described, then the mind exists apart from the material world. What else is there apart from the material world but the supernatural world? Those are the only two that you have. You have the natural world, which is made up of matter and energy, and you have the supernatural world, which is made up of all the stuff which is not attributable to the characteristics of matter or energy. I don't think that this is a simplistic statement. That indeed, the materialist cannot even prove his own existence. Because a materialist, in order to prove his own existence, requires me to be able to see him, which requires the immaterial capacity to see and to look and to recognize. So if my seeing, if the immaterial, my seeing, my recognizing, and my acknowledging his existence cannot exist because it's immaterial, then he can't even prove his own existence. He certainly can't prove his own existence by himself because, to all intents and purposes, if there is only the material world and nothing immaterial, how can he even know that he exists? Because self-awareness is an immaterial characteristic of life. There's nothing in matter that you can point to and say, this has pink, the color pink. It is made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, a few trace elements, and it is self-awareness. I can pull this glob out of a person's brain, and that glob will still be self-aware, will still exhibit the characteristics of self-awareness, even after it's destroyed.
I'm going to give you information.
Think about it.
So we can figure out what's going on.
If self-awareness is a characteristic of matter itself, then death could not possibly exist. How can death exist if indeed, in the material sense, life is a property of matter? What is it that could remove from the matter the property of life? Nothing can. If it is truly a property of matter and or energy.